How to emotionally detach. Set clear boundaries, define and maintain emotional boundaries to protect yourself from becoming overly involved in situations or relationships that cause distress. Focus on self-care. Prioritize your well-being by engaging in activities that promote mental and emotional health, such as exercise, hobbies, or meditation. Practice mindfulness. Stay present and avoid overthinking past or future outcomes. Mindfulness helps reduce emotional attachment to situations beyond your control. Limit contact. Reduce interaction with people or situations that trigger emotional involvement. This gives you space to reflect and regain perspective. Challenge negative thought patterns. Identify and reframe unhealthy beliefs or expectations about relationships and situations. Focus on acceptance and letting go of unrealistic demands. Setting clear boundaries is essential for emotional detachment because it allows you to define the limits of what you are willing to accept from others, both emotionally and mentally. This process involves being mindful of your own needs, understanding where you feel emotionally drained, and taking deliberate steps to protect your energy. By establishing boundaries, you create a buffer between yourself and situations or relationships that might lead to emotional exhaustion, confusion, or dependency. To begin, it's important to recognize that boundaries are not about shutting people out, but rather about ensuring that interactions with others are healthy and mutually respectful. For example, in relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, it's crucial to communicate your emotional limits openly. This may involve setting time limits for conversations, expressing when you need space, or clearly stating when a particular behavior or topic is off limits. It's not about being cold or indifferent, rather, it's about protecting your emotional well-being while still maintaining a functional relationship. An essential part of setting boundaries is self-awareness. You need to be honest with yourself about what triggers emotional overwhelm or anxiety. Identifying these triggers helps you clarify where your boundaries should be placed. If you find that certain interactions leave you feeling depleted or anxious, this is a sign that a boundary is necessary. Learning to say no without guilt is a significant aspect of setting these limits. It allows you to maintain control over your emotional energy and prevents you from overcommitting or becoming overly involved in situations that do not serve your well-being. Maintaining these boundaries also requires consistency. Once you've communicated your limits, it's essential to enforce them, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. There may be people who push back or react negatively when you set boundaries, especially if they're used to having unrestricted access to your time and emotions. However, standing firm in your boundaries is vital for emotional detachment. It reinforces that your well-being is a priority and that you will not allow yourself to be emotionally exploited. Focusing on self-care is a crucial aspect of emotional detachment, as it shifts the emphasis from external factors and relationships to internal balance and personal well-being. Self-care involves the intentional practice of nurturing your mental, emotional, and physical health, making it a foundation for maintaining emotional independence. When you prioritize yourself, you create a stable, nurturing environment that allows you to manage stress, reduce emotional strain, and approach situations with greater clarity and resilience. One of the most important elements of self-care is developing a routine that replenishes your energy and nurtures your well-being. This can include physical activities such as exercising, eating a balanced diet, and getting enough sleep. Physical health is directly connected to emotional well-being, so by taking care of your body, you support your ability to remain calm, grounded, and emotionally stable. Exercise, for instance, releases endorphins, which can lift your mood and reduce stress, while good nutrition and rest provide the energy and focus needed to face challenges without becoming emotionally overwhelmed. Beyond physical care, self-care also involves cultivating emotional and mental resilience. This might include engaging in activities that bring you joy, such as pursuing hobbies, spending time in nature, or indulging in creative pursuits. These activities allow you to focus on what makes you happy, independent of external relationships or stressful situations. By doing things that fulfill you personally, you build a sense of self-worth that isn't reliant on other people's validation or approval. Additionally, self-care requires paying attention to your mental and emotional state. Practices such as mindfulness, meditation, or journaling can help you reflect on your feelings, gain perspective, and detach from negative emotions that may arise in your interactions with others. Mindfulness, in particular, encourages living in the present moment, helping you let go of lingering emotional attachments to past situations or anxieties about the future. When you are mindful, you are less likely to react impulsively to emotional triggers and more likely to respond in a thoughtful and balanced way. Practicing mindfulness is a powerful tool for emotional detachment because it encourages you to stay present in the moment and observe your thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without judgment. Mindfulness involves cultivating an awareness of what is happening both inside and around you, and it helps create emotional space by allowing you to experience situations without becoming overly reactive or attached to them. By grounding yourself in the present, you can detach from the emotional pull of past events and future anxieties, which often cloud your judgment and intensify emotional responses. Mindfulness begins with developing the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions as they arise without immediately reacting to them. This is often easier said than done, as many of us are conditioned to respond impulsively to triggers, particularly when emotions like anger, sadness, or frustration are involved. However, through mindfulness practices such as meditation or mindful breathing, you learn to create a gap between the emotion and the reaction. This gap is crucial for emotional detachment, as it gives you the opportunity to decide how to respond rather than being swept away by the emotion itself. A key aspect of mindfulness is acceptance. This doesn't mean resignation or passivity, but rather the ability to acknowledge your emotions without trying to suppress, control, or avoid them. When practicing mindfulness, if you experience sadness or frustration, for example, instead of trying to push those feelings away or act on them immediately, you simply recognize that they are present. This awareness helps you detach from the intensity of the emotion because you are no longer fueling it with resistance or denial. Instead, you allow yourself to experience the emotion fully, but without letting it dictate your actions or overwhelm your state of mind. Mindfulness also encourages a non-judgmental attitude towards your thoughts and feelings. This is important for emotional detachment because often we judge ourselves harshly for feeling certain emotions, which can deepen emotional attachment or create unnecessary guilt and stress. By practicing mindfulness, you begin to view your emotions as temporary experiences rather than fixed realities. For instance, if you feel anger towards someone, instead of labeling yourself as an angry person or feeling guilty for having the emotion, you can observe the anger as a passing state. This shifts your perspective, making it easier to let go of the emotion once it has passed. Limiting contact is an essential aspect of emotional detachment, as it helps create necessary distance from people or situations that may be emotionally overwhelming or draining. When we are too closely connected to someone or something that negatively impacts our emotional well-being, it can be difficult to maintain perspective and establish healthy boundaries. Limiting contact is not about abandoning relationships or cutting people off entirely, but rather about recognizing when too much emotional involvement is harmful and taking steps to protect yourself by reducing interaction. One of the primary reasons for limiting contact is to prevent emotional enmeshment, which occurs when the emotional boundaries between you and another person become blurred. This can happen in relationships where you feel overly responsible for someone else's feelings or where you find yourself deeply affected by their moods and actions. In such situations, limiting contact allows you to regain your emotional independence and separate your feelings from theirs. For example, if you are constantly around someone who is negative or emotionally volatile, their emotions can seep into your own mental space, leading to stress or anxiety. By limiting contact, you can reduce their influence on your emotional state, making it easier to detach and maintain your own emotional balance. Additionally, limiting contact gives you the space needed to reflect on the relationship or situation with greater clarity. When you are too close to a person or issue, it's easy to become caught up in the emotions of the moment, which can cloud your judgment and prevent you from seeing things objectively. Taking a step back, even temporarily, allows you to assess whether the relationship or situation is healthy or if it is contributing to your emotional exhaustion. It gives you the chance to evaluate what you need emotionally and how the relationship or situation fits into that. This space for reflection is vital for emotional detachment, as it helps you decide whether to re-engage on healthier terms or to continue distancing yourself if the situation remains harmful. Limiting contact can also help break cycles of emotional dependence. In relationships where there is an unhealthy dynamic, such as constant arguments, manipulation, or codependency, it's easy to become stuck in a loop of emotional highs and lows. Every interaction may either bring relief or tension, creating an emotional roller coaster that makes it difficult to detach. Reducing the frequency of contact helps disrupt this cycle and gives you the emotional breathing room needed to regain control over your own feelings. Without the constant back and forth, you can begin to stabilize your emotions and see the situation from a more detached and objective standpoint. Challenging negative thought patterns is a critical step in emotional detachment because it helps you break free from harmful mental habits that can fuel emotional distress and attachment. Negative thought patterns often arise from ingrained beliefs or cognitive distortions, which are habitual ways of thinking that skew your perception of reality. These thought patterns can make situations seem more threatening, overwhelming, or hopeless than they actually are, causing you to become emotionally entangled in unnecessary anxiety, anger, or sadness. By identifying and challenging these thoughts, you can begin to detach emotionally and see situations with greater clarity and balance. One common negative thought pattern is catastrophizing, which involves expecting the worst possible outcome in a given situation. For example, if a close friend doesn't respond to your message immediately, you might start thinking that they are upset with you or that the relationship is falling apart, even though there could be many benign reasons for their delayed response. This type of thinking creates unnecessary emotional turmoil as you become consumed by worst-case scenarios that are unlikely to happen. Another negative thought pattern that fuels emotional attachment is black and white thinking, where you see situations or people as all good or all bad with no room for nuance. This kind of thinking often leads to extreme emotional reactions because it oversimplifies complex situations. For instance, after a disagreement with a loved one, you might start thinking, they don't care about me at all, or this relationship is a complete failure. These kinds of extreme judgments make it difficult to detach emotionally, as they amplify the intensity of your feelings and make resolution seem impossible. To challenge black and white thinking, you need to practice seeing the shades of gray in situations. Ask yourself, is this really all bad, or are there positive aspects as well? By acknowledging the complexity of the situation, you can reduce the emotional intensity and take a more balanced approach to resolving the issue. Overgeneralization is another negative thought pattern that can lead to emotional entanglement. Overgeneralization happens when you take a single negative event and apply it to a broader context, often with phrases like, I always mess things up or nothing ever goes right for me. This type of thinking traps you in a cycle of self-doubt and hopelessness, making it difficult to detach emotionally from setbacks or failures.